Welcome. Welcome to each one of you. I really, really enjoy seeing you here, taking care of your lives in this way. Of all the things you could choose to do, you're here taking care. Excuse me, taking care of your life by practicing Dhamma. And so this morning, as usual, Sunday Sounds program. That means we'll have about 10 or 15 minutes of guided meditation, a Dhamma talk, and a bit of time for comments or questions at the end, and the dedication of merit to close. And I don't want to take too much time with announcements, but I do just want to mention that we will be having the Death Cafe in Washington, D.C. This coming Saturday at, I'm not sure if it's 10 or 10:30, so check the website. 10:30 says Satadara. And it's going to be at a private home there in Washington, D.C., not here at the vihara. So just be sure you get the right address and show up for that. Unfortunately, it's not going to be hybrid, and there's a limited number of people that can come. So if you want to get to that, if you want to come to that, please do register. The registration link is on the Dassanaya website, dassanaya.org. All right, that's enough announcements for now. So for this morning's meditation, I think I would like to do a body scan. We'd like to do a bit of practice of the four, what we call the four great elements. And that's earth and water and fire and air. And when we do this body scan, the idea is not to do a visualization so much as it is to have your mindfulness attend to different spots in your body. So you start, let's say, at the crown, and so you put your attention there and just receive the sensations there and see if you can feel anything related to that element. And each time I say, so then move down the face, it means then you put your attention on the forehead and a little bit lower and so on, right? Just moving the attention down the body. Hola, Amparo.
Nice.
All right, so let's give it a whirl.
Yeah.
And as always, beginning with some movement of the body. And if you haven't muted your mic, then please go ahead and do that. Thank you. Loosening up any tendencies to lean in one direction or the other. And allowing the body to find an upright and balanced posture. Feeling that alignment of the spine and the neck. So that the bones can carry the weight of the body. And the muscles can soften. And relax. And then moving the attention to the crown of the head. And perhaps becoming aware of the earth element. So the firmness, the solidity of the body. And then slowly beginning to move the attention down the face. Checking in with your attention to see if you can feel the solidity of the body. Maybe taking a moment to touch your teeth together. That's a good example of earth element. And then continuing, moving the attention down the neck. Aware of earth element. And down the right shoulder. Mindfully attending to the firmness, the stability, the earth element in the body, every cell. And down the right arm. Eventually coming to the right hand, also pervaded by earth. And shifting to the left hand. And moving slowly up the left arm. Just checking in, point by point, for the solidity, the firmness of this body. Coming to the left shoulder. And moving down the torso. Earth element in the form of flesh and bones. arriving eventually at the hips, aware of the earth element, the natural stability of the body. And moving down the right leg, little by little. Checking in for earth element, eventually coming to the right foot. And then moving to the top of the left leg, aware of the solidity, the firmness of this body as earth. And moving down that left leg. And arriving at the left foot, also pervaded by the earth element. Okay, moving on to the Dharma talk. Oh, maybe. So I will bring up the chant here. Give me a moment. Okay. So this is homage to the Buddha, the Dhamma, which is the teachings primarily, and the truths that it points to, and the Sangha, the community. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddhang dhammang sanghang namasami. My fellow Dharma teacher and friend Kylie and I have been teaching a course this month on death and dying and what it can tell us about living. Excuse me, pardon my throat. And so this week I spoke a little bit about a koan. And then that koan came up again in Precepts discussion group this morning as part of the chapter, the comments by Robert Aiken Roshi on anger, the precept about harboring anger. So I want to talk a little bit about this koan. And so first of all, what is a koan? There's so much misinformation about this. It's kind of surprising, but I suppose maybe that speaks to how mysterious or unanalytical the koans are. So the koans are stories, teaching stories from the old Chinese and Japanese Buddhist traditions. And there are lots of them, probably over 1,000, maybe many thousands actually, now that I think about it. In Rinzai tradition, somebody told me there were 3,000 koans. I thought that was pretty amazing. Rinzai is another one of the lineages of Zen. There were 5 at one point. Now there are basically only 2.5, you could say. Soto, Rinzai, and Obaku. So a koan is a teaching story, and they're stories that come from Tang Dynasty China, so long time ago. 9th, 10th, 11th century is kind of that time frame where that was considered to be kind of the golden age of Chinese Chan Buddhism. And and this word koan is an abbreviation of a phrase, a longer phrase in Chinese. And the phrase is kofu no antoku, kofu no antoku. And those kofu no antoku were these proclamations that were made by the emperor or the local rulers in various parts of China. And they would literally be posted on a board in the towns to tell people what the new laws were or the new rules or the new taxes and so on. Kofu no antoku. And so this word koan is used in relation to that phrase because the connotation or the sort of more subtle meaning there is that it's something that applies to everyone. Yeah. So it's kind of like a precedent. We might think of like a legal precedent. It's something that occurred in the past, a case that occurred in the past. In fact, they're called cases. And it's a case that occurred in the past, which is not exactly the same as our case, but can inform our case. Right? Our case is our life. So they're called koans. in the Japanese tradition. And there are usually many meanings to a koan. I tell people that if you haven't derived 3 meanings from a koan, you haven't quite gotten to the bottom of it. And that's because the koan is intended to both say something about conventional life and say something about the universal principles, if you will, that are at work in our lives, and something about process. So that might sound a little formulaic, but I think when you read koans, you will see that it's not always intuitively obvious what is the meaning of of why this story is still being told centuries and centuries later. So, but I will share this one koan with you because I think this one is particularly dear to me, but also I think accessible. So as the story goes, the student and the master go on a condolence call. They go to visit a family whose family member has died. They might be there because they knew the person. They might be there because they were expected to perform some kind of rituals. We don't really know. The koan doesn't actually tell us that part. But they go on what's called a condolence call. And they arrive at the scene, and the student raps on the coffin. Dead or alive? Wow, that's pretty rude, huh? Somebody did that at a funeral that you were at. That might be a kind of shocking behavior, right? Dead or alive? And the master says, I won't say, I won't say. And they're walking home, they're halfway home, as the koan says. And the student again says, dead or alive, master, tell me. And the master says, I won't say, I won't say. And the student says, if you won't say, I'll hit you. And so, of course, the teacher says, you can hit me if you like, but I won't say. And so he hits him. And koan goes on to tell of an encounter that he has decades later, some 30 years later, with another teacher. And he tells this story of what happened. And he asks the teacher the same question, dead or alive? And the other teacher says, I won't say, I won't say. And something snaps for him right then. Some insight, deep insight opens up for him in that moment. Mm. And you know, these stories, people have commented on these stories for ages and ages and ages. And that's a nice thing, in part because, you know, it might give you a bit of a foothold. It might give you some idea where to start with such a thing. But here's what I want to share with you about this, story. So first of all, we could look at it from the conventional perspective, right? The student's obviously agitated. The student's obviously very upset about this encounter with mortality. What does it mean? What does it mean for him? What will happen after he dies? Or maybe this person that he knew, what happened to them? Mhm. And the teacher could have told him any number of teachings of Buddhism about karma and rebirth, or various teachings that would address that question. But I think that instead what he does is that he doesn't try to resolve his students' upset. He doesn't try to placate him. Mm. And the comment to this that I find particularly beautiful, illustrative, is this comment. So this is, I'm going to read from a book called The Blue Cliff Record. Blue Cliff Record is a collection of koan stories. This one is particularly associated with the Rinzai school more than the Soto school. The Soto school collection is called The Book of Serenity, although I haven't seen too many people to whom it actually brought serenity, I will say. But in any event, these are collections of the koans that also include a variety of commentaries. So there's commentary here, both by the translator. So this is Thomas Cleary, a very, very excellent translator. And Hueto gives his comments as well. So the comment here is very, very interesting. So line by line on the koan, he gives a little bit of a reflection. And here's just one little tiny bit of the commentary. It says, the student, Yuchuan, or Chinwan, was face to face with it, but he stumbled past, running after the other man's words. He was face to face with it, but he stumbled past. Face to face with the uncertainty of what will happen to us after death. Face to face with the way in which this mystery cannot be reduced to just a few words. In fact, even if we take a very traditional view of it and say that this is about karma and the process of karmic beings and what happens for karmic beings in the process of life and death, the master very appropriately doesn't try to explain away karma. The Buddha himself said that kama in Pali or karma in Sanskrit, is one of the four unknowables, is one of the four immeasurables. Not immeasurables in terms of like the Brahma viharas, but yeah, the unknowables. So the beauty of it is that not saying is itself a demonstration of what's true about this, what's true about what happens, and what we can know about what happens. And perhaps at the most intimate view, I would say, the master also knows that just telling his student what he believes is true will not remove his doubt. He has to confront his own doubt and his own belief and his own understanding about his life and what it means. People can tell you what they think, and you might believe it, or you might agree, or you might disagree. But the resolution of doubt doesn't come from that. It doesn't come from someone else's words. It comes from a deep knowing of what's true about what you're experiencing and where that leads. So the master has actually told him the answer to his question in a very, very simple way. But the student has stumbled past it. Mhm. And that's why he's angry. He's angry because he hasn't yet faced that. He hasn't yet made his peace with the parts of life that we cannot know. Mm. The parts of life that even a Buddha doesn't know. So when I was a chaplain, one of the things that I learned early on was that when you sit at the bedside with someone who's dying, whether you know them or not, whether you're related to them or not, whether you feel friendly with them or not, you inevitably think about what will happen to you. Will it be like this or will it be different? And if there is something that we can know about karma, and I would say there is, then we know that when we take care of our choices now, in this life, in this moment, that will take care of the next moment. That will take care of the results that come from that. Mm. That if you want to know the unfolding, then be the unfolding, observe the unfolding. It has never been apart from you. Dogen has a beautiful teaching about this. He says, birth is a moment complete in this moment, and death is a moment complete in this moment. So the question of what to do then with the worry, what to do with the anger. Mm. So for me, a guiding principle about anger has been to remember that when anger comes, it means that something about my sense of self has been challenged, has been threatened. That's why we call it pushing buttons, right? Because you feel that push. You feel that push. So it's a good opportunity to see what it is that you think that needs to be defended. What is it that needs to be defended? What is it that needs some care? What is it that needs a boundary or a painting or a poem to express it? What's going on there? Because death is also one of those things, right? Death is also one of those things that's challenging your sense of you. I think I spoke recently about this, but I'll repeat it again. You know, when the Buddha was dying, his last words were, Maya Dhamma Sankara Apamadena Sampadata. His last words were, constructed things or conditional things are going away, they're falling apart. And it's a very poignant thing for him to say in that moment, right? He is also a constructed, conditional thing that is going away in that moment. And then he says, take care of the way with care. Take care. Fulfill the way with diligence, with carefulness, with perseverance. Because, like him, you can face the unknowable and make your peace with it. Know the knowable and thereby understand what lies beyond that. So at the end of the koan, it says that he had this awakening moment by hearing the same teaching of his teacher from another teacher decades later, when he was ready to hear it, when he was ready to receive it and not stumble past it. And that's also a very good lesson for us, right? That Sometimes you need to hear a teaching many times. Sometimes you need decades to understand a teaching. Even today, occasionally, I will think of something that my master said and go, oh, wow. Yeah, I see another facet to that. Kind of beautiful. The Dhamma is that way. In any event, it says that Qin Yuan took a hoe into the teaching hall and was crossing back and forth. And Jishuan, who was the later teacher that he went to talk to, said, what are you doing? And he said, I'm looking for the relics, the remains of my late master. Presumably to pay his respects. I'm not sure exactly. Something, he was moved to try to look for his master's remains. Monastics would usually get a very, very simple burial. You might not even know where. But Shishuan says this most beautiful statement here. Vast waves spread far and wide, foaming billows of clouds fill the skies. What remains of our late master are you looking for? Do you understand? He's saying that your teacher was a Dhamma, and you are amidst a world of Dhamma. Clouds and sky and earth and rain. You are amidst the Dhamma that was your teacher. And when you know yourself as a Dhamma, then the matter of life and death isn't quite so scary. All right. That is what I wanted to share with you today. And I did a little better job of leaving more time for questions and reflections today, particularly given our topic.
Thank you. It was a very wonderful Dhamma talk. I was really struck by your definition of koan. You did not use the standard answer of it's meant to blow up your conceptual mind. And every time I hear you talk about a koan or talk about a koan with you, we're not doing that either. You can interpret these. They're not uninterpretable and meant to explode the conceptual mind, it seems to me, by learning them from you.
Mm-hmm.
And you didn't mention it.
Yep. So there are different ways of teaching koans, studying koans. My master used to use, various different ways. This way of, you could say, unpacking it a little bit. The way of giving it as a study. So the koan, I had given myself a koan of what is this moment, but Roshi gave me another koan, which is about the cow who can't get his tail out of the window, which is if you have a sense of self, everything can be completely resolved, but as long as there is that little sense of self, then you're always stuck in the window of the Dhamma, in the conceptual understanding. But so there's that way of giving it as a kind of question to sit with. And there is the way of, the koan kind of cracking you open. And what I have found is that a skillful unpacking still leaves open the question for you, still leaves a space for you to really wonder, right? Wonder, what is that? What is it that is pointing to? Have I really experienced that thing that it's pointing to, or have I really penetrated that in some way?
I think you said it perfectly. Even by unpacking it, you can still make the koan your own to work with. Yeah, and I think it's even more beneficial to do it that way.
Did you hear all that? He said he agrees that even by unpacking it, you can still make the koan your own. Stig, please go ahead. Did you want to say something?
Yeah, I find this is very difficult to do. In other words, there's such an urge to want to help that it's so easy to get caught up in trying to relay basically one's own experience to it, which is not very helpful most of the time. So it's very informative from my side. I'm wondering if you can give some tips on how what's helped you get to that point of being able to reveal the mystery rather than the answer. Yeah.
For me, the discernment is about this question of resolution, right? If I am presented with something that I know won't resolve, then that's the time when what I am doing is just I'm like the midwife of the question. I'm like the midwife of bringing forth that person's own spiritual journey, and that is the way to help, is to really encourage staying with that discomfort, staying with that doubt, staying with that thing that feels so urgent, versus a situation in which I can see, for example, that there is a bit of information or a framework or even a word that might help, help the conceptual to shift. And then in that case, it's like, right, can I help you by giving you this word, or can I share a little something about this teaching story or that framework or that concept as a way of being able to make that shift. So I agree that Stig, that it can be difficult, it can be subtle, it can be hard to know how to make that discernment or appropriate response. There's I forget if it's Hakuin or if it's Rinzai Linji, who gave a teaching for teachers about 5 typical things that happen when people come for practice discussion. And I couldn't rattle them off to you right now, but the first one is something like the student presents you with a sticky tray. And then the teacher takes that sticky tray and does all kinds of clowning around with it. This is the literal language that he's using, right? And I think, oh, right, have been there, right, in that situation where I didn't discern that there's no way to resolve the sticky tray problem for you. So you have to stay with your sticky tray.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, that's fine. Thank you.
Maybe that's more answer than what you were prepared for.
No, it's fine. Thank you. Yeah. Back to the drawing board, but more iteration is needed, I think.
Yes, Brad.
can't help but think of, I think it's Hakuin, who his disciple says, Master, where do we go when we die? And Hakuin says, why ask me? And the disciple says, because you're a Zen master. And Hakuin replies, yeah, but I'm not a dead one.
Nice. Nice. Thank you for sharing that, Brad. Yes, Julia, did you want to comment?
Yes, I like the sticky tray enough that it seems to me isn't that what life is, and we are all to some extent or another dealing with a sticky tray.
Yeah,
some things
clinging, absolutely clinging. That's
taken something, and some things don't, and we keep juggling, and so. I'm pondering all the unknowables, and my list of unknowables is growing. And some of that is aging. From what I understand, is that the older we get, the less we know. Which I've tried, well, something to tell teenagers, I think, but and even the things, there's so many things that humans want to know. One of the human survival techniques is to try to find certainty. And so it's very difficult to let go of to live without knowing. I mean, there's some things are knowable. If you've got a job, you probably know what to do. I'm retired, so I know nothing. But anyway, thank you for the sticky tray. I will go with that.
Okay. All right. Beautiful. Thank you, Julia. Yes, clinging is a fact. Claudia, déjame quitarte de la interpretación. Dígame.
Yeah, what is a sticky tray?
O sea, una bandeja pegajosa.
Sticky tray.
Literalmente, una bandeja pegajosa.
Bandeja pegajosa.
Esa. ¿Ok? Te vuelvo a poner.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and no, another thing. Yeah, yes, I was thinking about what Julia said and before about death, uncertainties, and mysteries. And because it is so difficult to live with uncertainties, I sometimes feel like myself, like I'm a child at some point, and you need these certainties to to hold to for a while. Sometimes when you're desperate, and they kind of work, they hold you, like believing in God, for example, or these things that we start believing, or reincarnation, or things we don't know certain, but they can help you transit points in your life. And I was thinking about that the way is about maturity, like mature. And to be honest, I'm not in that point, like 0. But I think it's I want to, but I cannot force it.
Yes.
It's just I see them. I see. I don't know most of. I mean, I don't know anything actually. Well, I know that I know some things like Julia said. You have a house, blah blah blah. But yeah, but walking that path. I mean, I want to, but I need to be honest. Where am I?
Yes. So thank you for the reflection, Claudia. I want to say,
can you put me in the translation? So
honesty and okay.
Please, thank you.
Yes. An honest assessment of how the practice is going for you and what you really feel and what you really think is the foundation of our practice. Whether it's going well or not going well is not nearly as important as keeping that sense of honesty. So thank you for that reflection and that inner reflection for yourself that you're doing to look with clarity at what you can or you cannot practice. Two things I would say is, one, you can observe your past lives. That is something that you can observe. It takes a certain amount of practice. It actually is kind of a side effect of certain kinds of meditation. But that's, again, a matter for reflection or contemplation, or for some people for belief. But the other thing I would say is this, Claudia. You can, and I say this to you personally as well as to everybody, but you personally, you can know your body and your mind. You can know the truths of this moment that you're living in. And that is the place to anchor yourself, even in the midst of struggling or worrying about the unknowables. Okay, so I give you that. And the Sangha. Don't forget about Sangha. Yeah. To stay. This is a very demanding path that we're on. In some ways, it really asks a lot of us. So having our good Dharma friends is always important. Yeah. All right. Dana, I don't know, we're a minute or two over our time, but I think there's time for the announcement if you would like to make it.
With pleasure. I'll be quick.
Okay.
The practice of giving and receiving has been a part of Buddhism since its inception. Donating to Dassanaya Community supports our guiding teacher Dhammadīpā, the physical location of the vihara, and allows us to continue to offer Buddhist teachings in support of the awakening of all beings. There are several ways to donate available to you from the website, and the donate tab will get you to financial donation, volunteering, material supports, and of course, always great to do. If you haven't done it, sign up for the newsletter. Thank you for a wonderful talk, Dhammadīpā. See you next time.
Okay, thank you so much, Dana. Yes, much appreciation for all of your presence, your supports, all the many ways that we are making community here together. And may our practice and the merits that we have generated here today be a cause and a condition for our awakening, for our release from all confusion, all mental and physical suffering. And may it be a light for all beings to be free from suffering and to know themselves as Dhammas. By the power of the Buddhas, the Dhamma and the Sangha, and each one's efforts, may all beings be free. Bye, everyone.
Gracias, Clau.
Thank you.